So Donald Trump has made his counter-programming plan for next week's second Republican debate. He's going to head to Detroit, where he's going to deliver a speech in front of hundreds of auto workers who, of course, remain on strike from the nation's three biggest manufacturers. It is a notable play for the frontrunner of the Republican nomination because for the better part of the last century, the Republican Party has been the party of the bosses. It's the party of management over labor. It's a core part of the identity, a central Republican belief. For decades, it has been the case. If you elect a Republican president, you will get a federal government that is much more hostile to organized labor. And crucially, this is important, this was also true under the last Republican president, a guy by the name of Donald Trump. Donald Trump appointed anti-labor members to the National Labor Relations Board. He chose Eugene Scalia, son of conservative Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia and a longtime corporate lawyer, to lead the Department of Labor. He elevated anti-worker judges to the federal courts who consistently have been ruling against labor in their perches on the bench. Now, Donald Trump and his party of bosses have a bit of a political problem. You see, something is happening in America. We are witnessing an enormous resurgence of pro-labor enthusiasm. Nearly 70% of Americans support labor unions, a number that has been steadily rising for the past decade. 75% of Americans, 75% say they side with the auto workers in their current dispute. So when you look at those poll numbers, what is a Republican to do in the face of that clear public opinion and a strike with no end in sight? Now, some, like presidential hopefuls Nikki Haley and Tim Scott, notably both from one of the most anti-union states in the country, South Carolina, are sticking to the old party line. You almost have to respect it. Scott even suggested firing workers who go on strike. But the more sophisticated political operators have managed to reverse engineer a perfect scapegoat for the whole situation: woke cars.
I think the workers are right. They need higher wages. And importantly, we need to stop the premature push to electric vehicles that's putting a lot of Ohio auto workers out of a job.
I guarantee you that one of the things that's driving that strike is that Bidenomics and their green energy electric vehicle agenda is good for Beijing and bad for Detroit.
They want to destroy the auto workers in this country. They want to have cars made all electric. They're all going to be made within 3 years. They're all going to be made in China.
The electric vehicles are the problem, not the corporations or the bosses or the record profits, not translating to record contracts or the two-tier system put in when Detroit was flat on its back and the American people rescued them. No. It's the woke environmental agenda. It's the electric cars, which, of course, we need for the future to mitigate the biggest civilizational threat we've ever met. This line is a great way for Republicans to avoid sounding like the anti-union bosses lackeys that they, in fact, are. And they are helped by the fact it does contain a kernel of truth. There's a lot of anxiety among the auto workers union about the transition to electric, especially with the country's biggest electric automaker, Tesla, not being unionized. Would be great if it was unionized. I'm not sure Donald Trump would support that one. Now, you can be sure that Donald Trump will harp on electric vehicles again in Detroit when he speaks in front of the striking auto workers next week. And it will be a real test of the political press. Will they just focus on the optics, Donald Trump courts union voters, or will they dig into the actual substance of Trump's actual record on labor when he was actually the president of the United States, as well as the record of his party versus that of President Joe Biden, a president who's filled the National Labor Relations Board with some of the most pro-labor appointees in memory? Now, I have to say, this is exactly what Politico just did, meeting the test, when they followed up on a story about the optics of Trump's speech with this piece about his clear and consistent anti-labor record in office. Kudos to Politico for that. But this is a key test a whole lot of outlets failed in 2016. And if we do not want that to happen again, we cannot just report on what Donald Trump says on its face. Donald Trump was the president of the United States. In that position, he wielded real power. He has a substantive record beneath his words, and everyone has a responsibility to tell the full truth about that.